Hi everyone, this is Terry Mitchell from the Voice on Fire interview series, and for those of you who may not have followed along before, what I do is find really amazing and interesting people in the communities, either locally to me here in Australia or anywhere around the globe, someone who's making a difference within their community or even across the global village. Today, my guest is Sizol Fuyana. My apologies, I've even got that wrong, Fuyana. And you're located in, I believe, in the Northern Territory. Is that correct, Sizol?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. What I really would like to do to begin the conversation is to ask what it is that you do, who you do it for, and why you do it. Because I believe you're quite a strong advocate within the youth space. So share with the audience what it is that you do.
So I run my own business. It's a youth-oriented consultancy firm.
Mm-hmm.
I develop and run youth programs for young people, equipping them with life skills and with the focus of social and emotional well-being.
Awesome.
It sort of started off, it wasn't planned, like I never planned to be doing any of this at all. I went through a hard time in 2019. I lost that. I think I hit rock bottom. I absolutely hit rock bottom in 2019, and I had 3 suicide attempts in that year.
Oh, no.
And I just thought my life was. I generally thought I had no purpose. That it was over. This is it. I was 19 at the time, and then
So I'm so sorry to hear that.
Oh no, I used to be very embarrassed by it until I saw a different light to it. So, I'd come out of that at the end of 2019 and I went, what am I going to do? I applied for jobs and I just got rejected. So I told myself, if I can't find a boss, I'll just be my own boss. That's what I told myself. That was the starting point. And then I looked at, okay, what's a problem in society? And I looked at youth crime.
Oh, wow.
And I went, how can I add value to the young people? And that's how it all started. And I do it because I see what's going on with young people, and a lot of it, what we're seeing with the crime is the end result, but deep down there's a cause. There's so much pain that they're dealing with, and they're expressing it through hurting others, because I think hurt people hurt people.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're seeing with these kids. So I said, okay, how can I approach this from a different point of view? From not just, go to this program because you've been let off bail. No, let's do it out of love. Take away the behavior and just go, I'm here for you, not because I've been told that I need to come here. Because I think the relationship is what I've noticed hits a different level. Once I build that relationship, that's when we can have those conversations of, oh, what's really going on, and have those chats with them.
What was it that inspired you to even ask yourself those questions? Because going through an incredibly soul-destroying period in time where you feel like you've lost purpose and you don't really know what's ahead of you, let alone what you're going to do to bring in an income for daily survival, what makes you ask those questions? And they're pretty deep soul-searching questions in themselves. Where did you find that inspiration to even bring yourself out of the darker moments?
I met a friend, right? And this guy, he's about 2 years older than me. And his life was just so different. Like he was winning like scholarships and all this stuff. And I was like, what is it that you're doing that, why is it that your life is working and mine's not? And he goes, the power's within you. And I was like, what's this stuff? Like in my head, I was like, this is rubbish. Like what are you on about? And then that's when I started soul searching. I went, you know what? Let me just dig deep within, because for a long time I thought everyone else was the problem. I thought the world was against me, but it's me versus me. It was me versus me the whole time. And seeing someone else do it inspired me to go, okay, let me face myself.
Wow. That's a big thing to do for someone as young as you are. And I say that only because I'm in my 50s, but when I reflect back to the time that you're in your life now, I was in the same dark place, very much. And I didn't have the forethought or even the awareness within myself to look around and ask those questions. I suppose I had found myself deep in survival. How do I even survive? But here you are, And I really do praise you for this. You're sitting there thinking, there's a problem in society. What's a problem that I know that I can maybe make a difference with? And you've taken
Yeah.
what sounds like a very dark time in your own personal situation and seen that as an opportunity to go, I can make a difference. And you've done that in a very short space of time. So what was it that made you think in terms of solving problems outside of yourself? What obviously you had this friend who influenced you. What was it that led you to think that perhaps there's something that you can do that's not about focusing on yourself? Where was that transition?
I think when I had come out of all this and, life was going pretty good, I looked at others and I felt for them, because I used to be self-destructive. The thing these kids are doing, I used to be in that much pain. And so I looked at them and I went, if I can come out of this, so can you. That was, it was, if I could, my goal is to end unnecessary suffering, because in a sense suffering is good, right? Because without challenges we wouldn't grow.
Exactly.
But unnecessary suffering that some of these kids go through, I want to end that.
Wow.
Yeah. And these kids, it's almost like they're searching for love. Because I was too. I was searching for love. And it wasn't until I looked within that's where I could say I found the fullness of love.
Wow.
And to be able to love all my mistakes, so not just the good stuff that happens, but love the bad things as well.
Yeah.
And once I was able to do that, that's when I went, I can help others now. Because service
really
for me,
amazing. Yeah.
Service for me is just my forefront. If it's service, service to others, service to self, because to help others, we've got to help ourselves first.
How did you come to that awareness though? Did you have any sort of influences going on? Obviously, you've mentioned that you've been in a lot of pain, and I agree 100%. Oftentimes it's when we go through really dark times, once we see we're on the other side of them, we can reflect back and look at it from wow, I got through that. And there are lessons there. And obviously, it's one thing for ourselves to be able to reflect back and look at a dark time and think, oh, wow, look at all those lessons. But quite often, a lot of people can't do that. So where do you think you gained that insight, or what were the things that you've learned about that insight that allowed you to share it in a way to help others? And it's quite an important point, because, as we know, not everybody can reflect back on a difficult time. There's some of the people that you're helping go through a dark time, perhaps emerge and go on and do it again. And they do the things that are destructive that lead them to be continuing in the same cycle. You stopped that. Where did you sort of see that there was something that you could do, and how have you turned that into the business that you've got?
I think, so after I'd met this friend and whatnot, I started, I think you have to want it for yourself. That's the big thing. I was desperate. Like I was desperate for something to happen, because I had no income. It was just a mess, and it came from a place of desperation. I wanted some sort of change. And to an extent, when I was partying and doing all that stuff, the best thing people did for me, and it's crazy to say this, but the best thing my family did was to leave me and let me go through it by myself. Because not until I reached the end that I went, okay, this isn't what I wanted. But if they had stopped me in the midst of all that happening, I don't think I'll be here. Like, I don't think I'll be this I would have this much self-awareness if they had stopped me. So I think it's about going through it. You have to go through it, and they have to want it. I had to want to change. And then I got into Napoleon Hill, Elle Nightingale, Tony Robbins, I got into all that stuff. And then I really it fired me up. It really fired me up. And then it's like the more fired up I got, the more I would imagine.
Oh, wow.
Then I started, because imagination, people don't realize that the power of imagination creates reality. And I used to imagine, when I had no job, but I used to imagine being a business owner. I still remember, I wrote it on my vision board 2 years ago. And I was desperate. And then after that, that's when I looked at others and I went, yeah, you too can do it. Like you can do it as well. But
Yeah,
they have to want it for themselves.
yeah.
Because
Oh,
we can be a tool, but we are a resource for them, for these
mhm.
kids, but they're the source.
Yeah,
The source is within, you know.
yeah.
So yeah.
That's a hugely insightful state of reflection to see that, and you are 100% right in that the only way that we can facilitate or instigate change in ourselves is firstly to realize that we're either in so much pain that the only other option is to escape life altogether, and that is a terrible, tragic situation that too many young people are going through, or
Mm-hmm.
it's desperation, as you say. You look around at your circumstances and go, I've got no job, I'm not at school, I have this is going wrong. All of these terrible things appear to be piling up around you. And some people get to those states of desperation, but quite rightly, as you say, they can be some of the most powerful motivators because the choices are so terrible. So it's
Yeah.
what are the other options? What are my other options? So how have you turned that into a business? Share with the audience what it is that you now do and what are some of your key learning points and just some of the instances of people that you've helped.
Yeah. So what I do now, I'm the executive director at Fuyana Support, which is my last name and support.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always the focus for me was always young people, especially disadvantaged or troubled young people.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked at what I went through. I looked at how I went through, you know, how I got out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put programs together
Oh,
with
wow.
different skills. So for example, when we do sports, it's connecting life skills with sports. So
Wow.
sports is used as a way to, you know, let your emotions out, etc., etc.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, if you look at it in soccer or basketball, you still get frustrated on the basketball court or
Mm-hmm.
on the soccer field. It's about having those conversations of, I'm angry, but how do I manage this? Because the emotion itself isn't bad. It's about how we manage it.
100%.
So I'll go through that with the young people, and you know, I use sports as a way to connect because I think relationships are important when trying to help young people. Is that you've got to build trust and, you know, in a strong relationship.
Yeah.
So sports, food is a way, you know, we can build those relationships. So I started out at the Youth Detention Centre a month ago now,
Okay, wow.
working with kids there. So even, you know, some of the kids there who are about to leave and go on bail, so about putting together a plan, like, okay, what's your vision once you get out? Because if you're not being defined by a vision of the future, you'll be stuck in the past.
Yeah.
So if we can get like, if we can organize services to come in and, you know, if you want to do apprenticeship, having those services come in and talk about, okay, what do you need to do? What do you expect of you when you come out? To so then there's a pathway as soon as they come out, rather than they come out and there's nothing for
Mm-hmm.
them,
Yeah.
you know.
Wow.
And for the girls in there, it's about, I think you've got to work as a team, you know. So instead of, you know, you're stuck with, you know, with the people you're with in there. So it's about how can we work together so
Mm.
that we can just get through this
Yeah.
rather than work against each other.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely. How do you find with some young people? Because I know I reflect back again to how I was. And at the critical times in my world, when the things were going wrong, I had absolutely no vision. I had no idea what it meant to even have thoughts about creating a positive future for myself. How do you go about handling that? Because I'm sure you
mm,
must deal with some youth who are so disillusioned and so lost and so utterly just no faith in society around them. After all, they're probably blaming society that they're in a situation such as a detention centre. It's easy to point the finger of blame
yeah.
because we don't realise how to hold ourselves accountable sometimes. If you've never
Yeah.
learned what that means, you can't apply it. So, how do you go about bringing all of that back? Just one moment.
Yeah. Sorry. There
That's
we go.
okay. We had a momentary glitch there. So, how do you go about helping people to looks like we're just having a couple of technical problems there.
Mm-hmm.
We're back. We're back. Cool. So yeah. So how do you go about helping them to find that vision or to have a bit of faith in something beyond the current parameters of their situation?
Mm. You're right, because there are a few kids who you know, I come across and they're like, "Nah, miss, it's the world. It's the world," and it's about sort of you have to stem down to their level. So with every kid it's different, right? You have to be on their level. Because if I come in with the same stuff I told another kid who's got a vision, it's not going to work. So I've got to bring it down to their level and their understanding. So I asked them questions. Why do you think the word is against you? And we would unpack it. Because the statement the world's against me it's a statement, it's a facade statement. So I mean, why do you think the world's against you? And then we start to have that conversation, and then I can bring in a different perspective, and they go, oh, you know, and because there's some kids who are really, really disengaged, and it's just about working with them. So not me coming here to be some problem solver or someone to fix them, but no, I'm here for you. You don't need fixing. I'm just here for you. Because I think a lot of kids have said to me that they feel like the government is trying to fix them. A lot of kids have said, the government's trying to fix me. And I say, you don't need fixing. Because the thing with their behavior and their emotions, it's all energy. So if we can transfer that energy into something else, the same amount of energy they take to rub a car is the same you could start, something else. It's about them being able to see that.
Yeah, wow.
But doing it on their level.
Yeah, that honestly, that is really, really powerfully insightful. And to be, I suppose, partly your advantage in one sense is because of your youth and perhaps being relatively freshly out of a set of difficult circumstances. It's still relatively new emotionally for you, so it's very real for you. And I think they'll probably sense that. You're finding that when you're engaging with some of these youth and just hearing some of the truly tragic situations that some of them find themselves in, do you find that the idea of engaging them back into society, which has already probably shown them a pretty tough time, do you find that there's some resistance or are there any challenges that you've also kind of helped them to see? Obviously, that whole thing about the energy, I love that. That is so true. The energy it takes to rob a car is the same energy that you can use to read a book, that same kind of how do you become better. Do you find that you've had any challenges in what ways you've overcome those with the young people you work with?
Yeah, I have found there are quite a few challenges when working with them, because a lot of them generally think like their life is over. They think like, oh, miss, I'm not going to get anywhere. But that stems back to, I always tell them because that information has come from somewhere, and we're dealing with kids from dysfunctional families and etc. So they hear this stuff, their parents, and it's become, because it's become embedded into the subconscious, right? It's by repetition. It's been told over and over again. And it is quite a difficult position for me, because I'm coming here trying to sort of help them see the light, help them see a glimpse of it within them. And there has been challenge or resistance, but it's about that bond. If I can get through that, even if it's playing soccer with them, just that click, I can be that one person, because it takes one person. When I was in high school, when all the other teachers were like, Sizol, you're not going to get anywhere with your life, etc., etc. There was this one teacher, and I still go see her now. There was this teacher that just had faith in me. She just had faith. Obviously she had to discipline me and tell me off when I was naughty, but just the love and faith that she had in me would change the whole thing. And if I can be that one person.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's so much of what you said there resonates so strongly in that, firstly, it takes one person to have faith in another person that could be the difference between life and death. And it can be that brutal. It just takes one person to acknowledge and reach out and say the right things that just come from the heart, that the receiver of that message could be the person that is on the edge. And just knowing that one person cares can just turn everything around totally.
Exactly.
And the idea that someone can have faith in another person, I think you echo a lot of personal strength and a lot of really deep compassion, because you're seeing, you're firsthand experiencing these really difficult situations for these poor kids that they've just not known that there is a better way. And if they have seen it, it's not been something that they believed was within their reach. So how did you go about creating programs? Like, where did what was the progression for you? Obviously, you decided you wanted to be in charge of your own career path. Fantastic. Great that you've stepped into an area that you know that you can help with. What's been the progression in terms of from perhaps the first day through to where you are now? What kind of steps have you taken and what have you implemented?
Wow, that's crazy to look back. I think it came up on LinkedIn that it was like my first year anniversary or something for my business the other day. But from that first day, I just knew the programs were key. That engagement, that was basically the purpose of it all, to develop programs and not just. And I looked at ways that we can incorporate hands-on activities with the life skills that the government's trying to teach them. So rather than put them in the classroom and talk about respect, help and make them do it on the field, and then have those discussions. Go, hey, you did that on the field. What's the difference between that and at school? And have those discussions. And they tell you, these kids are like, I don't feel respected at school. That's why I don't respect others. You see how from just the combination of sports and having it in a physical scene, that we can draw out so many reasons as to what's going on at school, why. Yeah, so the programs were the first idea that I had, and then implementing like video footage. There's a program I run here where we have a video footage where young people talk about their, whatever they want to express, and that's used as a way to help them express whatever and feel comfortable with expressing themselves, like sort of have a voice in the program. So then the program is not sort of run by Sizol, it's run by them. I'm just here to assist. It gives them a sense of responsibility and a sense of, I'm on an achievement, and then I think it was maybe 6 months ago, I started the reality change 6 months ago.
Okay.
And I think everyone used to tell me, this is like, you like to talk. And I think that's what started the podcast. I was like, let me start a podcast. And then so I started the reality change, because the power to change your reality is within you. I can't express that, whether you call it God, universe, whatever, but it's a power not outside of you. It's a power within you. So I started the reality change, where I talk about personal development, etc., and I do scenario questions, like what to do, scenario questions, and etc. So that's what sparked that off, and I have different guests on that podcast as well. But in terms of Fuyana support, it's almost like you plan, but things change. Like you can have a whole business plan now, and a year later, like it could be a whole different scene. That's what. Yeah, I never expected it to grow this fast either.
So you've got some key clients that you work with. Obviously, you're working with detention centres. Is that something that you do in terms of working within agencies and centres, or have you also got private clients? How has all that progressed?
It's more public. So City of Palmerston, detention centres, organisations, like government-funded organisations, they'll contract me, and then I'll go in and do some work. And I'll tailor my work for that specific organization, rather than it being generic. I'll go in and have a look at what I'm working with and tailor it for that, because not everything's going to be the same for every child. So yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of having to really think, but it's good. So yeah, I don't have any private clients. It's normally just councils and organizations.
I think it sounds like you've got your hands pretty full. It's a pretty amazing journey to have achieved that in such a short space of time, and to be seeing that there's probably, it's not just within your immediate vicinity or local community. This is a program that sounds it could go global. I mean, it could go across the nation. It could go wherever it needs to go, because as you've pointed out, it's the hurting people who hurt people, and they're hurting because they don't know any other way, and so they lash out, or they do something that's not terribly socially appropriate, because one, they don't know any better, but two, it's their way of getting attention or making other people feel what they're feeling when they can't verbalize it. And you've mentioned already that the word that resonates most strongly with me is voice. Part of the reason I started what I've done and the various platforms that I've approached is because it's about giving people the voice to be heard, and being able to be not only heard, but to recognize that the person speaking is speaking about something that others can resonate with. And there's a story there that shows that, it comes from compassion. It comes from wanting to recognize that we all need to feel heard and validated. And I hear this a lot through the people that I speak with in Voice on Fire. And it sounds like that's something that's coming through with what you're experiencing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And because these kids have a voice, but it's been told to be quiet, it's been told, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Whereas these kids know a lot, and to give them a platform where, like how the kids, I was out today, and I bumped into almost 10 of them. And for me, all I've done is be me. I've never done anything different when I've gone in to run these programs. I've been the person I needed when I was younger. That's what I did. That's what I do. And just by me doing that, all these kids like Sizol, and I'm here looking around, I'm like, who are these people yelling my name? And it just made me realize now that we're talking that I've had that much of an impact that, because you know these kids, they would never call your name out if they didn't like you. Like these kids are black and white, and it just made me realize that by me serving them, being of service to them, it's had an impact. And at the end of the day, that's my goal. And I hope it becomes a ripple effect, so then they help the next kids that are struggling.
I think that's really important. I out of the blue and unplanned, as we've spoken about here, I had a random communication with a young man in Nigeria, and he's a university student, and things are a little bit tough in Nigeria in certain aspects. Obviously some government issues and various other challenges going on. And I just happened to notice that it was like he was calling out for someone to recognize that he wanted to do something more for himself. And I've actually been mentoring him through social media and, through Facebook or LinkedIn. And I've been mentoring him for about 12 months now. And he's about to publish his first anthology of poetry. And all it took someone just to listen to him. Now, he's got his own unique way of writing, and there's room for improvement as there is with everybody. And yet his passion and commitment is unbelievable. And it's when I first had the few conversations with a couple of friends about it, what dawned on me was what seems like a little or insignificant step for me to take to them is massive, because no one else has ever done it for them before. Are you finding anything similar to that?
Yeah. Yes. Talking just from my experience with that principal at my old school, her doing all that stuff, for her wasn't, she was like, oh, that's just me. To this day, I asked her, why did you care? And she goes, that's just who I am. But for me, it was just something more than that. Like she showed me true love, and I think, and even you're talking about how, some things are massive for others. And that connects with success as well, because, people try and put this standardized, definition of success, whereas success is what you make it. My success is different to my friend's success. The other day, my friend came up to me and says, well, I haven't, had a drink in 4 weeks. And I was like, wow, because I knew how much that was his success. Whereas for me, it would be something like, I don't know. What is, I can't remember what I used to do now, but you know what I mean? It's different. It's different for all of us.
Well, for you, it's setting up your own business and taking on government clients. I mean, that is massive.
Yeah.
But to me, that is a massive thing. And I'm sure if you were to just check in with that same friend, maybe he wouldn't be the sort of person that would see the confidence in himself to go and do that. So it's, as you say, it's measure of success, but it also is would you agree that success is built upon having confidence in yourself, but knowing that others have got faith and confidence in you? What are your takes on that?
Before we carry on, if I take this off, can you still hear me? Let's check. All right, testing. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you. Yep.
Okay, perfect. My take on that is, yes, that's spot on, because confidence, I truly believe that your belief, that if you believe in your ability to do something, it's far much better than having a confidence to do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you truly believe that you can achieve something, there's nothing that can stop you. And it's about having the right people on your team as such, like on your side, clapping for you. Because the problem I used to have is that I would have these goals, but then I'll go tell all my old friends who would just laugh at me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd feel like, oh, maybe like I shouldn't do all this.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I changed my circle, because if you're around 4 successful people, you'll be the 5th successful person. 100% believe that, because what you constantly are hearing or reading and thinking, that's what you become. We become what we think about. So if we've got good support network who believe in us and we believe in ourselves, I truly believe that that's what it takes.
So would you say that the support network is probably the most important, and then beyond that it's recognizing your capabilities or having your competency level, and then that builds the confidence that leads to success? Is it sort of like that kind of progression? Is that what you see you apply?
For me, it started, I think I was a bit of a big head when I started. I had the confidence in me first before, and I told everyone else, and then I went a bit quiet. I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But it took me to take that first step of, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
It took, and people did believe in me when I didn't believe in myself, but I have to see it for myself first.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like these kids, you can tell them how much they're worthy, but you've got to show them that. You've got to show them, you've got to, when you're running the program, show them the worth in themselves. And that's when they can go back and go, wow, I felt something, because it's the emotion that you feel that lasts the longest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a big shift if they can be in a space where they recognize that the person that is around them is giving them positive feedback, but not only just making it sound really nice, because positive feedback that's just nice doesn't serve a purpose. It has to be able to resonate at a level that they feel it as a long-lasting thing, almost like a neural change in a way. It has to almost change the neural pathway, that it's like, hang on a minute, this is the way I've been. These were the people that I used to always hang around. And I echo in one sense what you say, where you've got a good idea and you share it with the immediate circle of people around you, and they kind of don't have the enthusiasm, or conversely, they tell you what a silly idea it is, and you feel really cut down, and you don't have the confidence or the competence or the self-belief or even a parameter of success to be able to look at that and realize, hey, it's okay if they don't agree with where I want to go with this. Most of the time it's like, oh, they don't agree with what I want to do, I must be silly. And we personalize it, we take it on board. To be able to step out of that is a massive, massive step. And it takes a lot to get people that are in a really dark place to be able to see within. So in what ways do you guide them? Obviously, you've talked about some of the more active processes, such as being involved in sport and then doing the comparisons with, life skills. And is there any other particular steps that you've taken? What sort of methods do you use? How have you been able to recognise ways to deal with some of these challenges?
When working with them?
Yes, yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm gifted a little bit. I can just, have you ever walked into a room and been able to just pinpoint and been like, I think that's, and it's crazy because these, the organizations are like, how do you know? And I said, I just see it. I see through it. And I don't know how I do. And like, I can just, even when things are off, I can just pinpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird because I feel like a lot of what I did for myself is what I'm doing now.
Yep.
So a lot of understanding, okay, where is this behavior coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And the guidance is about going, look, and not me being there to put out a guidance plan, but them going,
what do you want to do now?
Mm-hmm.
Because like, and I say this to them, okay, this has happened, and we have a chat about it, and then we go, what can we do now? So and I want it to come from a place of they take charge rather than me telling them you need to do A, B, and C.
Yeah.
So it's about going, even though I can give some sort of guidance and go, we should try it this way, or if you want to, say one of them wants to do mechanical engineering, so they're in the detention center, and they've told me what's happened, etc. And we talk about, okay, what could we have done better? What was the cause of that reaction? But it's them leading rather than me preaching to them in a way.
Yeah.
Like, so the guidance, it is a bit challenging, because especially when contracts end, that's the biggest challenge I face, is that, it's because sometimes I found that I'm that one person in that organization that's got them. So when I leave, it is a bit, it pains me a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about helping them realize that it's all within them. That's what I try to get at before any contract ends, is that you don't need me for this. I'm just here to show you what you already have.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
I'm always here as a resource. I'll go in and volunteer and whatnot and check in, but it's about them realizing that it's all within them. I'm just here to show them that.
Yeah, absolutely. And something you say there is really quite important, because some people will probably have the same feeling and feel really uncomfortable acknowledging it. Sometimes there are those of us who feel very strongly that the moment we're in a situation, we can just sense immediately what it is that's going on. It took me a long time to get to that point within myself. I always knew that there was something kind of different about what I was seeing and doing, and no one else seemed to describe the world in the same kind of way or vibrancy or words that I would sort of see. And I thought, oh, maybe there's just something a bit strange about me. But that strangeness was my unique quality, and it took me a long time to embrace that. But it's actually the thing that makes me realize that I value setting myself apart, not because I'm different or better, but it's just acknowledging and coming from within, realizing that sometimes I sort of see it a little bit as the universe taps into certain people on the planet as a conduit for change. And I kind of see it that way a little bit, because I've noticed that that's what's really taken place in my world, where it's not about me. It never has been about me. It's not about anything that I'm trying to do for myself, other than how does what I do for myself mean that I can serve people better? How can I make a difference to a bigger audience if I make myself better first? And it sounds like that's something that you can echo with. And is that sort of also something that you're helping to tap into within the communities that you help?
Yeah. That's spot on. And you're right about how the universe, like, I know I didn't choose this at all. Like, I did not choose any of this, but it's crazy how you've been put through so many struggles, but at the end of it, it's a beautiful thing, and it, my family says this all the time, because like the teachers at school used to say, Sizol, like you're so extreme, because when I used to do stuff, like I would do it to the end. Like I was like, if I was gonna be naughty that day, I was gonna be naughty to the extreme. That was me at school.
Yeah.
And my family says the same thing. Like it's just a big jump from where I was 2 years ago to now. They're still like shocked a little bit. But yeah, you're right about how the universe sort of picks people to be that lead that change. And I felt that too, because even a lot of people who know me, they're like, no one else has gone through what you've gone through, and you've just come out of it. And I said, I don't know. I'm just doing what I'm doing what feels right. Exactly. I'm doing what feels, when it comes from a place of love, I'm doing it from a place of love. And these kids, it's the same with, I can see it. I can see the ability to shift change that these kids have. They have it within them, and it's just about them realizing, just about shifting their attention here, not by force, because once you do it by force, you lose them.
Exactly.
Just by making them look at different things and go, oh, I didn't see it that way, and then they have a chat about that. But it's the same with these kids. I can see them then leading the next generation, where they're running their own programs or doing their own thing. Because when you have conversations with them, they talk about how they want to help their community, and they know the struggles. Because these kids will tell me, so this happens in our community, and I can see the passion, but it's just about having the right support. It's literally about just having the right support. Because I think with me, I was just so driven that I just did it anyway, sort of thing. Like, I didn't really, if you supported me, like, I was grateful, but if you didn't, I just did it anyway, sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
But with other kids, it's not the same. And that's why I've come in and gone, I'm here, like, I'm here.
Yeah.
And when people laugh at your vision, I'm here,
Yeah.
Because I think the biggest thing with them is what people think, there's a lot of stigma around if I do this, but it's about them being one with themselves first. Because once I realized that when you're one with yourself and you have those skills, what people say, you sort of just, you let it go, sort of.
Yeah.
Because I used to be like that. I used to argue back with everyone, whoever said anything wrong. I used to argue. I was nuts. Like, I was nuts. And I used to argue. Anyone who'd ever, like, look at me the wrong way, I used to bite back. And that's because I felt inadequate in myself. That's why it affected me.
So I totally echo that. I had my own anger issues, and it was very misplaced anger, because it was a form of defense that became a mask of protection, because I always felt that I was going to get targeted, I was always going to get bullied, I was always going to get picked on. So the mask kind of went on, and it became defensive, and it was this sort of pseudo-aggression in that I couldn't hurt a fly. I wouldn't have hurt them, but I had to protect myself. So I had to pretend I was some brute force kind of, personality. And it became this echo of just really just self-fulfilling prophecy. The more angry I got, the worse the situations got, and the more people would steer clear of me, or they'd bully me more. And I couldn't see that initially. And it wasn't until I was so broken and so hurt that one day it kind of dawned on me that, I'm not helping myself. Clearly, I had a lot of supports in terms of professional services that I had to seek to break those cycles. But it's not until we actually have someone kind of put that mirror up to us and think, what's going on in there? What's going on? Stop, think, calm down. But not just calm down, because if anyone ever tells an angry person to calm down, we know that's defeatist. That's not going to work. It's about, let's talk about what's going on. Obviously, you're upset. What's really going on? And breaking all of those conversations down. One thing you were mentioning, and it really stood out to me, and I think it's been really relevant across the last 10 years, is the presence of social media, because there's so many people who have, and I guess that's why places like Facebook and the like have taken down the likes, so that we don't have comparisons going on. I'm not as popular as that person, or I'm more popular. We don't need that stuff going on, because life's hard enough to navigate. And it's that whole sense of...
And you mentioned...
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
You mentioned something. I want to touch on the anger, because, my goodness, anger was my defense mechanism. Like, I used to use that to protect myself. Like, people were scared of me because I was so angry, but I would never hurt a fly. That's the thing. People used to think, I went back to my old school last week, and I was having a chat, and we actually sat down with my principal, and I said, Miss, I never had a fight at school, but everyone thought I did because of the way I was angry. Everyone thought I had like 50 fights at school, when I've never been in a fight. But because I was just so angry, and that was my defense mechanism, I would push people away. And for so long, like, my family used to tell me this, like, they'll be like, Sizol, the problem is you. But it never worked coming from my family. I had to face myself. Like, people could tell me, I used to be like, no, it's everyone else. I used to think everyone else was the problem, until I had to face myself. It's almost like the universe was putting people out there to be like, Sizol, like, reflect, like a mirror, and it took the courage to look within. And, because you're right, it's a lot of pain behind there that you've got to face. It's a lot of healing that I went through to overcome all of that. And the social media thing, I did a podcast about this last week, and we spoke about how insecurities stem from comparison. Because if you look within, right, and you've got nothing else to compare it to, why would you feel insecure? Exactly. Because you've you form some sort of judgment in here and gone, that's better. Whereas who said that's better? What is better? You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's a really important insight, yeah.
Yeah, because even these kids are like, well, that family's better. I'm like, who said that family's better? And I hear this a lot. People are like, oh, but that family's good. I'm like, people don't see behind closed doors, you know, because you can put whatever you want on social media, on Facebook, you know, but people don't see what's behind closed doors. And it's about teaching kids that you're fine with everything you have, with all that you have. You're fine the way you are. You know, and it's good to desire more and better, but when we become needy of more and better, that's when we come from a place of lack. You know, that we're chasing something to fulfill us. But when you're whole and you go, oh, that's nice, I like that, that's perfectly fine. But it's about knowing that you're okay with or without it.
Yeah, I think that's really important insights that. And I think it sort of echoes across all of society, and I don't think it's necessarily just a youth issue, although it certainly intensifies as a youth because life experience just isn't there to be able to manage all of those mixed social messages, I suppose. And I mean, not social media messages, but social messages as in the way people are in society. It's across all of society. And as you were talking about that sense of, you know, it's me, it's you know, I'm the one with the problem, it's me, I've got to look within myself and I need to see it for myself. I actually recall specifically going back probably 20 odd years ago, somebody actually said to me that I was the common denominator in any of my human interactions. So if there was ever a problem, it was me. And I was so devastated when I heard that because it came in, while it may have been said with the right intention by a person I didn't really know and have a trusting relationship with, I think it was a work colleague, but the fact that it was said at the time when I was so vulnerable and needed to hear something a bit more supportive, I was actually really hurt and devastated, and it actually perpetuated even more of a problem because it made me blame myself. It made me hold myself. I was the reason everything was wrong. So it kind of went from one extreme to the other, where I blamed everybody. The world hated me, and I was just, you know, I was just the mess. To me, then going, yeah, but I'm the problem because everyone else, I'm the common denominator no matter what. And I really took that to heart. And it's taken me a long, long time. Obviously, I'm well through it now, be able to talk about it very openly because I educated myself about what all of that meant. Are you finding with regards to the pathways that you're helping these young people go through, are you helping them to sort of re-engage or reconnect with the concept of education and not necessarily in the formal school situation? What's their take on education and how are you kind of bridging that gap?
You see, I'm gonna be honest. School's important, you know, like in the sense that, you know, you go to school, but I don't think school's everything. You know, I think school should have taught us about ourselves and taught us about us, you know, about how powerful we are. That's my sort of school, because I think my take on it is about teaching them, for example, how you view yourself. That's sort of my school, you know, because your self-conception will determine everything else. The way you view yourself will determine whether you achieve or not because of the belief I have. So in the sense that school is important, yes, but my engagement is more, what do you love to do and how can we channel that into the community? You know, so apprenticeships, mechanical engineer, etc. If you want to go back, if most of them do go to school, but they don't love it, you know, and doing something that you don't love can only take you so far. You know, it's the same as, you know, so many people are like, oh, the money's good. I'm like, but do you love it? Because the money will only take you so far. Like I would never work a job that I don't love. You know, even if you paid me $1 million, it's just and just to touch on money, because a lot of people are like, oh, you know, businesses make a lot of money, but the money is not the purpose. Businesses were created to serve the community, to fulfill a greater purpose, but the money helps us do that. See how money is a tool, not the end goal. So
I think a lot of people have realized that throughout COVID, that, you know, businesses have had to shut down, and it's like those that were able to, because their business structure could allow them to continue to function, because they could then capitalize on the internet to do so, or at least capitalize on the small group situations that a lot of us were, like groups of 5 or groups of 10, however many people were allowed to congregate in their spaces. They were able to recognize that serving the customer is the most important person in a business outside of business owner. Because if you don't have customers, you don't have a business. And yes, there are some terrible customers out there. We know. I've worked in customer service, and I know that there are some very sadly mistaken people who believe that they are the center of the universe. And I would always try to at least let them feel like I recognize that and try to at least provide them with the best service. But service is about making sure someone else is heard and validated, and you give them something that they realize that perhaps they didn't know they needed, but they've now got this thing and it's made a difference in their world. So the idea of your school kind of has me thinking a thought, and I wonder whether you've maybe got this in your game plan, that plan that you didn't know that you had. What's your 5-year plan or your big long-term plan? You may be seeing that perhaps you might even start up some sort of a school that might actually take, okay, you're nodding your head, I like that. So where's that going with you?
So especially with the reality change, so the purpose, the reality change is sort of to awaken people, right? That's the one that I really tap into, the Napoleon Hill, Tony Robbins. That's the one I plan to become a life coach in. So with the reality change, we're going to launch a clothing brand at the end of next month, like with shirts that says, your mind is a garden, what thoughts are you planting? And we're going to have the logo there, whatever. But with Fuyana support, the plan with that one is that in the next 5 years that we become, obviously I'll have to hire people, but we become the main service that, government, Department of Children and Families send us the kids to deal with them, rather than, I just don't think government bodies are working effectively at the moment, especially when it comes to youth. And my plan is to sort of have, to be that main source. So when kids are out of bail, they come straight to us, we welcome them, etc., etc. So that's the plan for the next 5 years.
Wow.
That's where I want to be with Fuyana support in the next 5 years, and running sessions in schools, so wellbeing sessions for kids in school, because there's kids who are already on that path of, I want to do this. So advancing that rather than, it going nowhere, because anything is possible. So instead of going to a child, telling child, oh, be realistic. I hate this because I hear it all the time, kids have when it comes to imagination, kids are the best at imagination. But as they grow up, they're told, be realistic. But in reality, what is realistic? Like, what is realistic? So it's about advancing the skills that they already have, because I've noticed when I do my studies is that, kids are this confident as they're growing up, etc., etc. And for many of them, it's not until they hit trauma, they go through something that affects them significantly. But for most of them, when they grow up, it's not until they get into middle school that they feel like their confidence levels go down. They're told, like, be realistic, you're not a child, but life is meant to be fun, in the sense, be responsible, be respectful, but have fun with it. Create something, invent something, rather than letting people keep you in a box.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that about when children start to feel a difference in their confidence levels. I had a really interesting experience, and I'm wondering whether this story might resonate with some of the experiences that you've had. I was living in a country city, and there was if I remember correctly, a community event that was being held in one of the parks, and it was kind of the lead up to either Easter or Christmas or something equally as communal based. And there was a concert, and the concert commenced with the family concert that was obviously going to lead to the more adult version a little bit later once the sun went down. And in the afternoon, I was there because I had some friends that had their kids there, and I was just there to enjoy it because it was a really fabulous day. It was so beautifully held. And I was near the front of the concert because one of my friends was actually performing, I believe, and they were doing the school, the children's concert. And I'm talking little kids, the little ones that are maybe 5 or 6 years and under. And what I found was really fascinating as I was watching was that the performers, who were just absolutely having a blast on stage, and the audience was really enjoying it, they called for, I think it was 7 or 8 young little people to come forward and be part of the kind of the action. And it was really, really sad to watch that some parents were actually pushing their little kids forward because the little kid kind of sort of wanted to do it, but was just scared, witless. And yet the parents pushed them. And some of the little kids were okay. They wanted to do it and they just went off and they just took their place and were ready to go ahead. But of those 7 or 8 kids, probably 6 of them were really, really anxious about being at the front and in full view of everybody, to the point where I think the singer was sort of in between, the chorus and the tunes, was saying, come on, little ones, let's dance, and asking them to dance and giving them some body movements to do. And they were like rigid, standing there frozen. They were terrified. Now, some of them were just scared. It was kind of a big moment. And it was understandable that maybe they were aged maybe 4. So it was a little bit of a big thing for them. I could understand that fear. But to see it transition into the older kids and see that they themselves were terrified of naturally having fun and joy and just allowing themselves to be present in the moment. And you could see that they were anxious. And my heart was breaking. And I saw, if that's what they're like at this age, how is that going to morph as they go through the troublesome teen years and develop into an adult? What's that going to look like?
Exactly.
How does that resonate with
because many of us, I've seen that a lot, especially in little kids as well. And I feel like for so long, I hear people say, "Oh, that's just the way they are," and I'm like I get that. There'll be times where I'm quiet and I'm a bit quiet, but for someone to feel that anxious about who they are, it pains me a little bit, because it just tells me that it's either someone's told them that they're not worthy, because this information has had to come from somewhere. Because once when emotions form, it comes from information that we're hearing. Depending on who you're listening to, depends on how you feel. So I have come across, and I know my friends who, from a young age, and I've got friends who were confident in primary school, but then now that I talk to them, they're like shy, like they're shy to talk to me, and I've known them for like 15 years. And it does pain me, because especially for one of my friends, I know that she's gone through a lot, and it's sort of taken all her confidence away. And even just when we talk, like, even though I'm a bit of a clown when I talk to her, but that's my way of helping her have a laugh, because she's not the type who would tell, who talk about how she feels. So if I'm a clown and she feels happy, then like that's all right for me. As long as because even now, like, she'll still message me, and she lives in England. I hope she doesn't listen to this so she doesn't think I'm talking about it, but she lives in England. So I grew up in England for 10 years. And, when I talk to her, I can tell, she's been through a lot. And by me just being funny and making cracking jokes, that's her way. It allows her to express herself. But it's different to some of my other friends who are shy and quiet and anxious. It takes a different approach for them. Like, maybe it's just going out for lunch with them that they feel comfortable. So, and I have realized that as well. And it's just about.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're all good. You're all good.
It speaks to the different personalities that we all have and a different set of circumstances that we all grow up in. And also, when you say that they've heard it from somewhere, a lot of the time it's not necessarily one person that has said it, and it may not even be within their circle that they've heard it. It can come from the television. It can come from the way marketing presents a situation, and the way words and language are used in books and in marketing and in magazines and just in communication. And it's the reinforcement of a belief or a behaviour by way of how society says what it's saying. And we're hearing perhaps a lot on LinkedIn about stereotyping, and about how, and unfortunately, there's a big issue going on about the way women are treated. And then we won't go there, because that's a whole other ballgame that really needs a full conversation. But just knowing that there are comments that are made that people are saying because they don't know that the depth of that actual comment, if it was broken down, really stems from something really completely unrelated to the flippant way that they're probably putting it across. There are actually really deep and probably stronger messages but it's become so ingrained in culture and habit to say some things and behave a certain way that we don't realise that that's also conveying a strong message that vulnerable people are hearing and seeing and interpreting from a vulnerable perspective. So I think we really need to be able to look at the whole society situation and think, well, what can we do differently? And that's obviously, that's where you're at. You're taking charge. I see that you've got a really powerful positive step that you've implemented, and just the idea that you've got several different ways that you're going about it through your support services, but also through your podcast and in the long-term picture is in terms of the three questions. I usually say, so what is it you do? And I think we've really well covered that, and who you do it for. Certainly it's the youth and those people in difficult situations. I guess my next question, and we sort of covered it, but just to go a little deeper, why do you do it?
Why do I do it? I think I've been through that. I've been through it. That's my why. My why is to serve others and help them realize, because I feel like when I see others succeeding, it makes me happy. I know it sounds like weird, and don't get me wrong, money is good. Money is, it keeps me going, whatever, but that doesn't cut it for me. It's more the service. I love community. I love people. I love problems, because then that's where ideas and innovation comes out, because you create something new. So it's my love for people and for my to be able to serve others. That's my why. That's my why.
And it echoes through it. It's a very, very obvious place that you come from when you say that. Now, if people wanted to reach out to you and connect with you, and to perhaps even maybe as a business or a government department out there that wants to reach out to you, how is the best way that they can find you? Where are you in terms of online presence, social media presence? How would they get in touch with you best?
So probably LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. What else am I on? Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, my website. So it's just fuyanasupport.com.au, and my email, Sizol Fuyana at fuyanasupport.com.au. But Facebook is the main one. If you want to go on my business page, which is Fuyana Support, and just send me a message there. I'll be happy to connect.
Fantastic. So for anyone who's going to listen to or watch either the podcast or this particular interview on my YouTube channel, the contact details for Sizol will be in the description beneath both the video and also in the podcast listing. So if you do want to reach out and connect, all of her contact details will be located there. And in terms of how you see yourself going forward, obviously there's a bit of a 5-year plan. What's going to be the greatest ambition that you can set for yourself, where you'll know you've succeeded by what's gone on around you? What's something that you can foresee as your future?
I think seeing more youth-led initiatives in the community. So rather than being council or being me even, they get me on there to be a youth representative, but having the youth on there, and even having like a youth council where young people can make decisions in the community. So it's not none of us speaking on their behalf, but them taking charge. And also seeing young people engaged in not even just the activities we have, but in work, in work that they love, young people creating something new in the community. That would be it for me.
Wow.
That would.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. And I totally agree with you when you say, if the youth could find a way to channel their energies because they're feeling heard and listened to, and they're contributing in a way that shows that the contributions they're making have come because people are listening to them, and there's this, I suppose, a discovery of what respect really is. You don't command respect or demand respect, you earn it. I mean, you can command it once you've earned it. You've got to learn what it really is to be respected, is to show respect. But that's such a big conversation in itself. And I can understand totally where you come from when you say, if we could have more youth-led initiatives, that would be, and I would totally and utterly support that. I think that there's an untapped potential there, because we're too busy telling young people what to do and not asking them, how would you do it? And let them show themselves through.
Yeah, exactly. Because so many people are trying to, especially like, because I get it from school. Like, if you're a teacher and you try to tell me what to do at school, like, I used to give teachers a mouthful because they used to try to tell me what to do. And it's the same with these kids, man. You can't just be at a young person's face and tell them what to do. You know, like, it doesn't work. It's about how would you do it. So then you get them thinking, you know, but then you put ideas out there and you see what interests them. So it's a two-way thing rather than me telling them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once young people have been shown how discipline works, and it's both self-discipline and a community style discipline where, you know, there is right and wrong, and these are the reasons why we do what we do. But also, if we show them that we've got faith in them and we trust in them, then they have to prove themselves. But it's almost like proving to themselves that they can live up to that expectation. And there's a real hero's journey in that. And I think we need to applaud that more. And I think you're doing a really awesome job doing that. And I just want to say thank you for your time today. I think it's been a really amazing conversation to discover the journey that you're on, and just the massive steps you've taken to be of service to the youth in your community and beyond. And I just wanted to say thank you. It's been a really, really meaningful conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.